Hey everyone, my name's Jessie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my wrap up for the month of July. Yes, we're in July. Oh my God. So I have a life update. I did have to go back to work this past month, so that is why I have not been able to upload videos as frequently. I'm so sorry. It's just been so busy with the baby and now work, and just making it all work is a lot, but we're getting through it. Baby's good, I'm good, it's all good. So here I am finally with my wrap up. I do have a quick shout out to make before we start talking about the books, and that is the shirt I'm wearing, Pages and Pets. If you can see, it is so cute. This shirt is from a company called Threadtank, and my good friend Elle over at Elliot Brooks is actually collaborating with Threadtank and came up with these designs for them. There's two designs that she came up with. This is one of them, Pages and Pets, and then there's a really cute dragon with a stack of books. It's so cute. I love her designs that she came up with, and I was so kindly sent one to feature in one of my videos. I'm so excited about it. I love the Pages and Pets because you guys know my dogs are always walking in the background of my videos, so I thought that this was very appropriate for me to feature on the channel. So if you do want to check out Elle's designs for Threadtank and Threadtank in general, this is a really soft, comfortable shirt, so I'm going to link all of the information for it down below. Thank you so much, Elle. Thank you so much, Threadtank, for sending me this. I love it. So now let's get into the books that I managed to read in the month of July. I did read, let's see, 5, and then I have a couple of mangas and comic books to talk about as well. So I'm just going to go in chronological order. The first book that I read was James Clyde and the Tomb of Salvation, which was so kindly sent to me by the author in exchange for a review. So this is a middle grade adventure fantasy story following James Clyde and his group of friends as they search for this Tomb of Salvation. I thought that this was a really fun and fast-paced story. It does pick up where the first book left off. So this is the second book in the James Clyde series by this author, and I did not read the first book. The second book you can read on its own without having to read the first one, but I will admit I do think that I would have gotten a lot more of the world development and the character development if I had read the first book. So that was kind of my biggest complaint with this book, was just not getting enough character and world development, kind of just being thrown in. And there was definitely a lot of hints to things that had happened in the first book that I just hadn't read about. So that was on me. I definitely think that if you want to pick this one up, I do recommend it for middle grade fans. I think that this is fun, fast-paced. James Clyde is a great protagonist, very brave, very sensible. I really liked following him, but definitely go pick up the first book, which I will put a picture of right here, and I will link all the information for these two books down below if you are a middle grade reader or you have a middle grade reader in your life. Overall, I will say the most fun part of this book was definitely when they got to the tomb. It was a lot of fun seeing them figure out some of these puzzles. It felt very Indiana Jones-like. I highly recommend these, again, for middle grade readers. I definitely think that that is the target audience that would enjoy this the most. And thank you so much to the author for sending me this book. The next book I finished was Mort by Terry Pratchett. So Mort is my very first Discworld read, and I am so glad to finally be starting my journey into the Discworld books. This one definitely didn't disappoint. I already can tell that I love Terry Pratchett's writing style. That was my absolute favorite part of Mort, was just the funny, clever, witty writing. I laughed out loud several times while reading this book. I thought some of the lines were so funny, so clever, very much like Monty Python humor spread throughout this book. Mort follows the story of Death. So Death is kind of its own character in Discworld, and Death is looking for a new apprentice, so hires this regular human guy named Mort to be his apprentice. And Mort is a very funny character. He's very inept at a lot of things in life, but he's very sweet and kind-hearted, and I loved Mort as a character so much. Death as a character was fantastic as well. My favorite parts of this book were all of the interactions between Mort and Death. those were the best. I will say that that is what I wanted more of from this book. I thought we transitioned a little too quickly to Mort going on his own kind of adventure in this book. And while it was still fun to follow his own kind of journey, I really liked the interactions between him and Death scenes in particular. So anytime we were shifting over and including Death in the story, that was my favorite part. So that was what I wanted more of from this book. So it wasn't like a new favorite by any means, but this is a really fun first entry into Discworld, and I'm so excited to keep picking up more of these books because the writing style is so funny. It's so clever. So very glad I started with Mort. I've heard that Guards is also fantastic. I'm definitely planning on reading that one, as well as the rest of the Death books next. So definitely let me know what your favorite Discworld book is down below if you've read any. I would love to hear because I'm very excited about getting even more into this whole universe. The next book I read was The Death of Mrs Westaway by Ruth Ware. This one I listened to on audio, and I liked the audiobook. The narrator was fantastic. It's the same narrator, I think, that does the rest of the Ruth Ware books, so I really like her. The problem was I didn't love the book. So I was not a big fan of this one. This one, unfortunately, was not for me. I found that The Death of Mrs Westaway started off really strong. It follows this woman who's kind of down on her luck. She's out of money. She's a tarot card reader. She doesn't really have any family left. And all of a sudden she gets a letter stating that she is entitled to inheriting some of this estate by her supposed grandmother. But she doesn't think that this woman is actually her grandmother. She thinks a mistake has been made, but she kind of takes up this offer anyway because she really needs the money. So she ends up kind of faking her way into this family, and it started off really interesting. It just became so repetitive. It was like every other paragraph kept reiterating the same sort of mental struggle that this character was going through, and it moved so slow. For how long this book was, the audiobook was about, I think, 14 hours, something around there. It felt like nothing really happened in that amount of time. Like there was very few things that actually pushed the plot forward. The rest was just being in the character's head, and it was just her repeating herself over and over again. So that was my biggest thing, was like the plot had such potential, but it was so slow moving, and it didn't need to be as long as it was. I definitely felt like Ruth Ware kind of added a lot of filler in. So yeah, this one unfortunately was not for me. I keep striking out with Ruth Ware because I liked Turn of the Key a lot, except I really couldn't stand the ending. And then Woman in Cabin 10 was okay. This one was definitely not for me. So I don't know, should I keep reading Ruth Ware? I just don't know if I love her books. The Turn of the Key has been my favorite so far, but I still didn't like that ending. So let me know if you've read any Ruth Ware books and which is your favorite, because I'm wondering, like, should I give up? Should I keep reading more by Ruth Ware? I don't know. Let me know, because I don't want to totally give up on her if she has like an amazing book out there that I haven't read yet. I'm particularly interested in her first book, In a Dark Wood, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. The next book I read was The Death Wish Game. This was also so kindly sent to me by the author, so thank you so much for sending me this book. This is a horror novel that follows a character who just got out of a relationship and is very much struggling mentally, ends up toying with the idea of suicide when all of a sudden his sister calls him and tells him to kind of start anew in Florida. So he gets on a bus and wants to start this new life fresh for himself, and all of a sudden he ends up finding himself with this group of people on this bus that is taken hostage and is essentially thrown into this game that is set up by these psychopath killers. I don't know. It is wild. It felt very much like a Saw movie in book form. So if you like the Saw movies, you might really like this book. I do like the first 2 Saw movies. After that, they get ridiculous, but I like the first 2. So this one was very intriguing to me, and it has a really strong start. Like, it just throws you in, and you are like, wow, this is crazy right from the get-go. So it definitely hooks you from page 1. This one had a really, really unique twist that I've never read before. It definitely went in a direction that I wasn't expecting, a little bit supernatural, if you will. I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to spoil it in case you do want to check this one out. So it definitely goes supernatural. It definitely has a lot of unique twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. This one for me though, I think what I was missing the most was a really, really compelling villain. The villains, or like the bad ones in this book, were just so over the top. They monologued, and the main character was constantly thrown into these situations where it was like, oh my god, is this the end? And then a character would start monologuing and he would get out of it. And that kept happening, where eventually, like, it lowered the stakes in my mind, because I was like, okay, every time this character gets in trouble, the other character's just gonna monologue and he's gonna get out of it. So I think that was my biggest problem with the book, was that the villains in this book just were not super interesting. They were very, very like over the top melodramatic villains that just had these monologuing moments that was like, oh, here we go again. Other than that, this was a really fun book, very fast paced. I really could not put this one down. Finished it in like 2 days, short, fast, packs a punch. The ending is nuts. So I really enjoyed this one overall. It just had some quirks that for me kind of lowered the stakes, but it was still fun overall. So I definitely recommend this one for horror fans. For if you like the Saw movies, you might really like this one as well. And then the last book that I finished, I actually just finished yesterday, so it does count for the month of July, and that was The Wolf by Leo Carew. And this one was the Shelf Space book club pick for the month of July, and it is with the guest host Liene from Liene's Library, who's my good friend, and this is one of her favorite books of all time. So I'd been wanting to read it anyway, just to check it out, even if it wasn't the Shelf Space pick, but because it was the Shelf Space pick, I kind of picked it up sooner than anticipated, and I actually really enjoyed this one. So there are a lot of people in the Discord server that have been reading this book for the book club that have not liked it. So I think I'm in the minority with Liene with really liking this one. This one follows essentially these 2 different kingdoms or races in this fantasy world. You have the Anakim in the north, and you have the Southerners, and they're constantly at war. So this is very much, it felt like a military fantasy. There wasn't a lot of like magic or anything that made this feel super fantastical. It felt very grounded in reality. In some ways, it almost read like a historical fantasy for that reason. The main characters in this book, you kind of follow 2 different perspectives, a couple of others, but 2 main perspectives. Roper, who just took over control of the Anakim in the north, and then you follow Bellamus, who is kind of in control of the Southerners' army and is very much studying the Anakim in detail and trying to figure them out, who they are, how they work, how they understand things. And that was a really interesting part of this book to explore. I really liked Bellamus's point of view, because I really liked seeing this character try to figure out, you know, the differences in language and how they interpret different words, and how the Anakim retain memories and pass down history. It was all really interesting seeing this character kind of figure out the inner workings of the culture of this fantasy race. I loved that stuff. I found it fascinating, and it's not something I've really read in a fantasy book before, a character really trying to deconstruct another fantasy race and understand their language and their culture and all of that. That was really cool. And then I really liked Roper's perspective as well. He's this young up-and-coming leader. His father is murdered at the beginning of this book, so he kind of is now taking control of the army, and he's trying to figure out his way. There's a lot of politicking that he has to do because he has has some enemies on the inside that he has to work around in order to maintain control. It's really, really interesting stuff. So I loved the politicking that was taking place in Roper's perspective. I really liked the exploration of the Anakim culture in Bellamy's perspective. I thought those things made this book, for me, really enjoyable. Now, I've seen a lot of people not like this book because it's very dense. Like, there are a lot of lengthy descriptions of things that don't necessarily matter too much. So for me, some of those descriptions, like the long descriptions of the castle or how they were hunting or things like that, I kind of skimmed a little bit, not gonna lie. But most of it for me was really fascinating. And I think the action scenes kind of at the beginning and at the end, there's these big action scenes, and I really enjoyed them. I found them pretty easy to follow. So sometimes in action, I can't follow what's going on. And I thought the author did a really good job of choreographing the action scenes and the war scenes. They felt very epic in nature, and I really enjoyed reading them. So I overall really enjoyed this one. I'm actually shocked that I enjoyed it as much as I did because it is so dense. Definitely description heavy, but overall, I had a really fun time with it. So I don't know, Leanna, I'm with you on this one. I really enjoyed it. I think Leanna loves it, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily think it's a new favorite, but I'm really glad I read it, and I'm going to continue on with the series. So I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion or not, and I don't know, who I would necessarily recommend this to. I've heard it's really good for fans of Game of Thrones, which I really like. A Song of Ice and Fire. I like those books, so maybe that's why I like this one, but I really enjoyed it. So thanks, Leanna, for the recommendation. Okay, and then a couple of just manga and comic books. I did end up reading Sailor Moon, what are they called? The Eternal editions of volumes 4 and 5. And volume 4 was the story. I don't know if anyone watched Sailor Moon growing up. I loved Sailor Moon growing up. That's why I'm reading the manga now, because it's just so fun. The volume 4, though, follows the story of Chibiusa, which Chibiusa in the TV show growing up was always my least favorite. I really didn't like her, and because she's like the main thing going on in volume 4, that was my least favorite so far. I really don't care about Chibiusa, and I didn't care too much about like the time travel storyline. I remember that one from the TV show, and that was always my least favorite. So that, I still really enjoyed it, but that one was my least favorite so far because I don't like Chibiusa. I'm sorry if anybody loves Chibiusa out there. And then volume 5, though, was fantastic. I loved volume 5. We finally got introduced to Sailor Neptune, Sailor Uranus, Sailor Pluto makes a comeback. Hello, I love it. I love volume 5. That one was really fun. So excited to continue on, and holy moly, volume 5 ends on the biggest cliffhanger. So now I need volume 6 because it's so good. It's so good, you guys. I'm so nostalgic for Sailor Moon. It's so great. Also did read The Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 2, which, fantastic. We follow Kingpin is the main villain in Volume 2, and I really like Kingpin. So I watched the Daredevil show on Netflix, and I love the Daredevil show on Netflix. So good. Season 1 is fantastic, and Kingpin is the villain in season 1. So I didn't realize Kingpin was a shared villain between Daredevil and Spider-Man. So I loved seeing Kingpin make a reappearance in Spider-Man. I was only familiar with him from Daredevil. So excited to see Kingpin here. Excited that he's now kind of around as a villain because he's really compelling to me. And I just love Spider-Man. Peter Parker's so great. I love Spider-Man. So very excited to continue on with volume 3 for Ultimate Spider-Man. I do think Ultimate Spider-Man is a fantastic starting point if you've never read any comic books and love Spider-Man and just don't know where to start. Ultimate Spider-Man is fantastic because volume 1 follows the whole origin story, which we all know, you can kind of skim through it. But volume 2 is where it starts really picking up, and I'm loving it. So those are all the things that I read in the month of July. What was your favorite book that you read in the month of July? I would love to know. Leave those comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.